Hello, and welcome to Page Turners, a spookish podcast.
Ooh.
Join us this spooky season as we interrupt our regular broadcasting to bring you weekly episodes of a partially pants-shitting substance, spooky books, and even spookier films. It'll work roughly the same as our normal episodes, just with creepier content. Fair warning though, there'll still be spoilers. That's Amy.
And that's Liv. Ooh.
Amy, how are you?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. It's Libra season officially. The birthday weekend has been and gone. Um, yeah, I'm good.
Tell us all about
All
it.
good.
Because I'm less worried. I care less about the birthday. I care that you
Yeah.
have a birthday, but you know the day that we're all asking for. How
Mm-hmm.
was it?
So as part of my birthday celebrations, my birthday was on the Saturday. The next day we went and met some sloth friends, and it was so wholesome and lovely, and I loved it. So we went to Edinburgh Zoo,
Mhm.
um, which I'm not the biggest fan of zoos, but if you're going to meet a sloth, there's probably quite limited places you can actually go without flying quite far. So we take what we can get.
I love that you because I'm also not a fan of zoos, and we've spoken about this before. But I love that you decided to, bend a little bit in your moral rules just to meet sloth friends.
Just to meet sloth friends, that was it. Yeah. When I saw the present that Rudy put together, I was a bit like, oh, okay, Edinburgh Zoo. I haven't been there since I was probably about, I don't know, 6. But that's fine. We can do that. And then when I realised it was a bit more to it than just going to the zoo, I thought, I feel like I can just turn a blind eye this once.
I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's going to blame you either.
So we went in, and I was really conscious that there was only one other person that could come in with you, because they only allow 2 people in at a time with the sloths, because they don't want to overwhelm them. And it was Rory had said to me the night before, "Oh, it's not me that's going in with you. I
Mhm.
didn't get myself a ticket to do this. I just got you one, and you'll just get to go in with someone else, a stranger that you meet when you get there."
Oh,
So
oh,
yeah,
I meant like you and the trainer or you and the handler. No, just
no.
all right. So Rory's just like, have a great time, dropping you off at school, the sloth
Yeah,
school. I'm like, go on,
yeah.
birthday. Oh my God.
Exactly. Exactly that. So I arrived, and I went up to the desk, and we sort of said, we're here for one of the magic moments, which is the official name of any of the animal encounters that they do at the zoo. And, you know, can you tell us where to go, etc. And she said, yeah, you've just got to go up to this little meeting point. When you get there, the other people are already here who are taking part too. So you just have to wait till the keeper arrives, and then she'll walk you over to the sloth enclosure. I was like, right, okay. So we arrived, and it was a kind of like wooden ramp part, and it was a woman about probably a little bit older than me. I assume her partner, her husband, maybe boyfriend, I don't know, and like a boy, maybe about 7,
Oh no.
and an older teenage boy about 14, 15. And I thought, who is it that's going in here with me? Please do not let it be the child or the teenager. Um, but then I got a clue who it was, because shout out to this lady who was lovely. Her name was Kat. She had a sloth jumper on. So it became very clear very quickly who was joining me with the sloths. And it was such a nice experience. We went in, and We got to feed them breakfast because it was their breakfast time. There were two sloths, but they were very respectful of the sloths in their space. And if they didn't want to interact with people, then they weren't forced to. So one of the sloths, the male sloth, Nico, he didn't come out of his basket. He was quite chilled. So he was a bit like, nah, you're okay.
Oh,
Um, and the female sloth, who was much bigger, called Fira, she was a lot more sort of engaged and interested in us. So we got to feed her some bits of vegetables chopped up and some fruit. And she moved a little bit, but I know it's like, oh, well, it's a sloth, Amy. Of course they're slow moving, but you cannot contemplate how slow they actually move until you are near them. It's really funny to watch them trying to build up any kind of momentum to do anything. Um, yeah, so we had half an hour in there. It was like ASMR sloth version. She was crunching away on the carrots and the aubergine, and it was so relaxing just spending time with her. Just love her. She's the
oh,
coolest.
oh, that sounds so wholesome and so lovely. And what I love is that. So, could you see Nico in the basket? Was he just watching?
So they have very separate areas because they are trying to encourage a breeding program, but they will never force it and they'll never do any of the kind of actions
Yeah.
that other zoos may do to encourage it. So he gets to stay very much in his own section of the enclosure, and Fira has her own little private bit too. So they can kind of come to each other if they want to, but they're never forced to. And he didn't even leave his little box. He was in like a little wicker box thing, just like having a snooze, and didn't even come out.
What I love is that it's just like Nico. Nah, mate, I'm not interested in fucking today. Nah, nah.
Not today.
He's
It's
me every
no.
single day.
Exactly. I
But
know. So yeah, it was lovely. And then we did get to see the zoo a little bit after it, which neither of us were all that bothered about, but we stayed for like maybe an hour or so. And then because we were having like quite a bougie afternoon in Edinburgh after it, I had to get changed in a car park. I had to lie across the back seats of the car and get out of my old, like really old done-in jeans and old jumper and like get fully changed so that we could go to the townhouse at Glen Eagles. So it was a day of two halves for sure.
and which did you enjoy more?
Oh, hands down the sloths.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's what we were
No
expecting.
competition.
I think
Yeah,
everybody listening, and I'm making a broad assumption about our listeners here, everybody would have voted for the slots.
worse. Absolutely. They are the loveliest animals. They are so I don't know, they're just so chilled. Like spending time with animals anyway is quite relaxing, I think, but there's something special about sloths because they're so relaxed and there's just no rush in them. And you just think, I can just take the time. I can chill with the sloths. Yeah. 100% recommend. If you like sloths, go for it. It's good fun.
Good. Nice.
Yeah.
Um, I did
Yeah.
I didn't see any sloths.
Uh,
We were at a wedding. We've been in Southampton for the week. But we were at a wedding in Salisbury. Shout out to Sonny and Gloria. Yeah. Woo! Woo!
woo!
Woo!
Congratulations.
Um, this was wedding, I think maybe number 4 or 5 for them. To Gloria and her from Hong Kong. So their last wedding they have is to go over to Hong Kong in January and do a whole tea ceremony in front of Gloria's extended family, which just Sonny was showing us like his fantastic jacket and they look amazing. They looked amazing. It was great. It was at Lama Tree Gardens, which
Mm.
I realize I'm saying that and nobody will know what that is. But there were peacocks, which whew, you know. And yeah, it was a great day. Great day. I've never drunk more alcohol in my entire life, though.
Oh, why? Was it just a boozy wedding or was there like
Well, I think so.
what's going on?
There was the reception, and it was just I think the wait staff were just fucking on it. Like I had my little reception prosecco,
Popping up.
and I
Hmm.
lovely, how nice, wonderful. Oh, a second. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, of course. And then I thought I'll put my glass down. I don't want to be fucked off my face by the time I get to the meal. I'll have. And then one of the staff comes over, and he goes, "Oh, you don't." I said, oh, I don't want to have a glass. He went, I'll go get you one. And I went, ah, ah.
Uh,
And I was like, oh, well, I tried. I tried. And
do you know what? As a valiant effort, you did try.
then I had no choice but to accept every single top up that came my way. And then me and my friend I was sat next to, we were the only ones drinking red wine on the table. So we had two bottles of red wine to us, and then there was more red wine on the bar, like taken over to the nighttime do. So I had whatever was left of the red wine from the tables there, because I'm not gonna say no to a free drink if it's a paid bar, like. And then
You're daft.
Alex and I made a few friends, and one in particular, he'll never listen to this, so I can drag him as much as I fucking want. Greg
Ooh.
just kept buying me fucking double gins and
Ooh.
but
Wow.
God. But it was when
The-
I said tonic, it was a little 330 Fever Tree thing, and obviously if that's a
Mhm.
double gin, you're looking at more gin to tonic. And don't get me wrong, they were delicious. But yeah, but the food was great, and then the evening food was great. I absolutely hooned down a sausage roll, a sausage sandwich. It was so good, so good. But no, lovely wedding, had by all, so much fun. I was not a belligerent drunk. Alex will attest to that. But I did get a bit grumpy when he wouldn't feed me chips in the bath later on.
It's to be expected sometimes, I feel. I think the mixing of alcohol is always dangerous, especially with red wine. I feel like red wine, if you drink copious amounts of red wine, you're already asking for a hangover. But as soon as you mix red wine with anything other than that, whether it be white, gin, vodka, shots, it's game over the next day for me.
I think was there shots? No, there wasn't shots. Oh, I panicked there. I think somebody went past me with a tray of shots and I like dodged it. Um,
Mm.
but I think what helped is, yes, I feel like I've never drank that much in a day, but it was a full day. Like the wedding ceremony, like the drink started from maybe like 12:30, and then we finished at 12 again. So, it's a good 12-hour period. So I hoped that maybe the reason I wasn't so deathly hungover, I was bad, but I wasn't as bad as I probably should have been. Um, yeah, I think maybe
Mhm.
because of the longevity of the day.
We had when we had our most recent wedding when we attended as guests, it was in May in Rhodes, and the groom's mum, I think, or maybe the groom's dad, I'm not sure, bought a round of shots for everybody there, but it was very much a everyone to everything abroad wedding.
Yeah,
It's not like there was loads of people that they were buying shots for, but it was a fair amount of people. And the shots came out and they were all very fancy, like different colours and things like that. And we are like, oh, it's cool, it's cool, cool. So you can go over, choose whatever you want, have a shot. If there's any leftovers, go for it. And we tried them and they were just fruit juice, like 100%. They had no alcohol in them at all. And nobody noticed because some people were too drunk. But we weren't that drunk, like not drunk enough to notice that a shot is just orange juice.
yeah,
And when you drink fruit juice, it's a bit thicker
yeah,
than like alcohol or, soft drink, whatever. You can always tell when something's like a fresh orange juice or a fresh apple juice or whatever it is. And they were 100% fruit juice.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it was really funny. We were just like,
That
okay.
that's like I know it's not on a grand scheme of things a conspiracy theory, but that's a sort of I love a little conspiracy theory that I can get behind. Like absolutely, that's class. You're there for the rest of the day, being like, all right, so how much did they charge him for this? Like, is he
Exactly.
out? What's going on? Yeah,
I know. And all me and Josh did is sat together watching people drink them and being like, have they noticed? Have they noticed? Have they noticed? They have noticed because you could see some people were like, hmm, oh, okay. Oh, that was surprisingly easy. And then other people were too drunk to have a clue what they were doing. So it was
what
quite
I
amusing.
what I'd have loved is somebody like taking the shot and then be like, oh, I'm so
I
drunk.
know. I know. I know. Like when you're a kid, like when you got Schlur as a kid and you at Christmas and you had like a sip of it and you were like, ooh.
Ooh, I'm gonna tell her she's fat.
Uh,
Uh,
great stuff. We've been busy.
but yeah, yeah, and it's only gonna get worse as the season comes on. But
Hmm.
what are you currently reading in and amongst our very, very, very prestigious and awarded reads?
I am currently still reading the same book. So there you go, people. We do actually read books. I do wonder if sometimes people think every week you say you're reading something else. Do you actually finish any of these books? We do. I'm back to Anathema because, as I said last time, it's quite a chunky book, and
Yep.
I had to stop halfway through to finish the book that we're talking about today. And the book we're talking about today was not a big book, but it needed notes. I felt like it deserved me to take notes. So it took me a bit longer than typical to read it.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm still on it. Yeah.
I definitely think the book we read this week was it was longer than I thought it was going to be. For sure. Which is why
Yeah.
I'm also on the same book.
Ah, there we go.
I am still on a Reign of Stars and Fire by L.J. Andrews,
Mm.
but 8 of 9 in this fucking series. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I also managed to fall into a hole of um an Instagram ad that was like a book on like an app.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but I refused to pay for those books, so I went and found the original source that the writer had uploaded it to the internet for. To which I was
Uh-huh.
like, "Is this stealing?" And then I was like, "No," because all the way through it keeps saying things like, "Please read from the original source of novel.org." And I'm like, "I'm on that website, mate. What more do you want from me?" Um,
Yeah. Okay.
and it is called "Falling for My Ex's Mafia Dad." Oh, and it is uploaded weekly, and I have finished 365 chapters.
Is it is it like a comic style, or is it
No,
just you get a chapter a week?
it's so fucking bad. But
It sounds it.
I've invested my time in this now, Amy, so I need to see it
Mm,
through. I'm gonna wait
okay.
and then check back on the website to see if there's any more because it feels like we're winding down towards like a big moment of the finale. So I feel like
Okay.
if I was maybe 100 chapters in and that was it, no, I'm nearly 400 chapters into this hellhole.
How long are the chapters?
Not as long as you would think. Not like a normal book long, but maybe
Okay.
a couple of scrolls down a website, maybe like
Ah,
scrolls down a site. But what I will say is every now and again, every like there's always at least one on every page, one paragraph. It's just gibberish. It's just fucking gibberish. Like it's words that have either been mistakenly spelled again and again and again, or like in a big couple of lines, or it's sort of like something's gone wrong in the uploading process. And then, of course, like I said, in the midst of a sentence, it'll say, "Please read the original content on novel.org." And every time I see it, I get angry because I'm like, "I'm on novel.org." But
I'm doing it.
yeah,
Uh,
stop
so
shouting.
is there enough to talk about for the title falling for my what is it? Falling for my
Ex
mafia
ex's
falling for her dad.
ex's mafia dad, not her dad. Jesus Christ, no, no.
No, my ex's mafia dad. So the ex's dad is a mafia don. Is that the idea?
Yep,
Okay. Okay. All
it's
right.
I do not recommend it to anyone. It is a pile of horse shit. But if I hadn't
Mm.
invested my time in reading the bit that was on the Instagram thing that was why was I still there at the end, I wouldn't be here now. So don't, it's a lesson for your kids. It's a life lesson. Don't listen to the things that Instagram tells you.
Fair enough. That's it. It's fair enough. Okay. I'm from one work of literary genius to another.
Let's go.
Shall we get into it?
Oh, as always, let's do it. Okay. Obviously, due to the technical issues that we had last week, Amy did put it in the Spotify description what we would be reading, but this might be more of a surprise to most. Um, Amy, tell the people what did we read this week?
This week we read Slewfoot by Brom.
Woo!
Ooh, a tale of bewitchery, as
Oh,
the subtitle says.
course, absolutely. Brom is an author I've wanted to read for a really long time. I always put Child Thief, which is their retelling of like Peter Pan. I think Peter
Mhm,
Pan's the villain, and I love that. I totally agree with that.
mhm.
Um, and I always put that on my Christmas list, and nobody's ever bought me it. Probably because
Uh,
a copy, all their stuff is like, I think it's independently published, or it's because they do their own illustrations.
Stunning,
Yeah,
gorgeous.
I mean, all
They also have a book about a Christmas book, but it's about Krampus.
hmm I feel like we could get behind the main character of Abatha here because she's very heroic. I'm not sure whether we get behind the hero of Krampus.
It's an anti-hero again. You never know.
Very true. Very, very true. Okay, so we thought to ourselves over the last, I don't know, let's say we in a couple of weeks we'll have done 25 book episodes and a few other mini-sodes. So we're probably on our 25th episode of Roundabout now. And it's taken us this long to go, do you think we've got any structure? To which to which the answer's probably no. Especially if you listen to a few episodes like Daughter of No Worlds, like God, that was a slog. Even Amy and I came out of that episode going, "That's shit." Honestly, this we have just talked about the plot. That's all we've done.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
Amy had this incredible idea to do a little to introduce a new feature, where, well, basically one of us each week is going to try and what's the word? Summarize the plot in 60 seconds.
Yep. Okay. Do you want me to put a timer on? Are you
Oh,
confident that you can do this?
yeah, that would be sick if we tie, and then
Yeah.
as soon as it hits six,
Look,
no,
look
look
at my wallpaper. It's a wizard cat. Can you see
at that
it?
wizard cat. Oh my
I
God.
love him so much.
I'm
Anyway, sorry.
Please look at my phone cover.
Oh, it's ghosties.
They're ghosts and they're like cute. They've got flowers and they look like they're 3D, but they're not.
That's lovely. Where did you get that from? I like it.
I got this from TikTok Shop.
Ooh, I have never bought anything from TikTok Shop,
And
but
just to be clear, our TikTok Shop. Me and you.
no.
I ordered it on the
Ah,
account. But I mean,
cute.
um, but yeah. Woohoo.
Right,
I got a water
right.
flosser and a little frog sitting in a rocking chair.
Lovely. Both really practical purchases.
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. So 60
Are you
seconds.
confident?
I'm I'm pretty confident I can do this in 60
Right.
seconds.
Okay. Ready?
All right. First ever page turner speedy summary. Let's go.
Okay, ready, go.
Okay, so Abatha goes from England to America and she's sold as a wife by her father. Her mother is dead, who she was a cunning woman. They're a Puritan community. Edward is her husband. They have a farm that he was made to buy from his brother after his dad's death, and they've got one payment left before it's officially theirs. Wallace is the brother but he levied it against an investment on a tobacco crop that went bad. He's lost it and wants to give it away to this prick in another town. They stand up to him and are given a chance to pay off it in full. Edward dies because he's being fed to a creature in the forest by little critters. Abatha is given the chance to get the payment herself. She's then helped by the forest creature that she names Samson, who might be the devil and also happens to be having an identity crisis. In between, she uses her cunning from her mother to help a sick girl, and she's been given charms and stuff to the women of the village to help them, and nothing evil. Wallace sabotages and tries to fuck her over many, many times, burning her crops, calling her out, all that. The town turns against her and accuses her of witchcraft. She's put on trial as Samson is imprisoned by a seemingly big bad. He's rescued by his critter friends in time to save a crippled and broken Abatha by making her, like him, a sort of foresty type avenger, beholden to the forest, and they go on a rampage into the town, killing all of the baddies. It's class. Abatha gets shot up, and Samson goes full on white rage and fury mode to offer a sacrifice for her life and bring her back, whilst also killing everyone. Epilogue: they have a nice little cottage in the forest 200 to 300 years later, happily killing those who would farm the forest.
Not bad.
How did I do?
1 minute, 1 minute 30.
Oh!
But for how, I wouldn't say it's like a complex plot, but for how much you've got to get there for like backstory, etc., I think you did a good job.
Thank you. I thought I'd done it. I thought I'd fucking nailed it. But okay, that's fine. Do you know what?
Fine.
We should keep a little table of how long it takes us to do it. Okay, I'm writing it
Love
down.
it.
Writing it down.
Okay.
1 minute 30.
1 minute 30. Not
Lovely.
bad at all. And very well summarized. So well done.
Thank you very much. Woo. So that is the plot in a nutshell.
Hmm. Let's go.
Where do we go?
And that's it. That's all we have to do now. Bye, everyone.
Have a great week. No, obviously, I felt like the plot went really, really fast up until the moment where Edward died. I thought I am racing through this. Like, and then again,
Yeah, and then did you
oh,
check how long you'd been reading it for? Because I did that. I was like, oh, we are getting places now. We are nearly there. And I think we were only at like 12%. It's like, oh, okay. All
well,
right.
guess not. Yeah, so that was yeah, a bit of a bit of a slog. I think I mean overall, I know this is our typically our final thoughts, but I feel like we can't ever help it. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I loved it too.
It was such a proper spooky, proper witchy, proper like how many times have I said proper now? Like autumn October read that just yeah, and it was so much more than what I thought it was going to be.
I agree. And I think I was talking to long-time listener, big fan Laura, about this, and I said it feels like you're reading a fantasy. So many times I was catching myself getting into like the fantasy, romance, cozy vibes. Like, when's the MMC gonna turn up? And then it was like, no, no, you're reading a horror book. This isn't that. But it just was so much more than a horror for me.
Yeah.
It was just a great time, very atmospheric, great setting, and the characters were just kick ass. I loved them all.
Well, I loved everyone you meant to love, right?
Hmm.
Like,
But to be fair, I even loved the way that the ones we weren't meant to love were written. Like it was just so much to it. It
yeah,
wasn't, nobody was a caricature, nobody was like a 2D character. Everybody had layers.
yeah.
It,
Nobody was evil for evil's sake. Like, even
no.
Bliss, like you say, they have depth. Like, there's a reason
Hmm.
he's the way he is, and obviously, I mean, setting it in the time it was set as well really helps sort of ground that this is the view, this is the way it is. You're not going to get any surprises here. No one's going to be like, oh, actually, we're going to be really liberal.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's set in a place called Sutton, Connecticut in 1666. So Puritan times, very austere lifestyle, God-fearing, just yeah, just a bit grim, wasn't it? And I loved the way that Brom introduced it with the church. Going to church was the first introduction to the village, the characters,
Yeah,
and how hard life was for the people. And then in contrast, how much Abatha was trying to, and Edward to an extent, were trying to carve out some little bit of hope, happiness, and joy from this really bleak existence that they found themselves in.
yeah. And I mean, let's talk a little bit about Edward because I feel like there's hope
No.
in the novel. There's quite, and and it starts to get more hopeful when Abatha convinces him to stand up to Wallace, and as the younger brother, like he does it, and then they have this moment, they have that beautiful moment of just being together, and she doesn't follow the whole etiquette of the Puritan wives with the bonnet and the hair and everything when she's with Edward because he doesn't care. He oh, it's so obvious how much he loves her, even though he's on screen on page, sorry, so little. It's just
It's so, yeah, it's a beautiful relationship. And I think you're so used to seeing, probably in fantasy actually, the the kind of storyline where the female main character is sold off to someone. She marries this horrible, cruel, and heartless man, and she's abused and treated terribly. And that's not the story. They've got a real love for each other. It might not be, the most lustful, passionate relationship, but they have a friendship and they truly, truly care about each other. And it's gorgeous. And you're so right. He wasn't even in the book for very long, but I loved Edward. I
yeah.
was really upset when he died. Did you think Edward was going to die?
Unfortunately, yes. I'm pretty sure it's in the summary. I'm pretty sure it's in like the contents of the book, like the
I
plot.
didn't read it. I didn't want to know. So I didn't actually read what the book was about. I just looked at the cover, knew that it was like Puritan vibes, and thought, that sounds right up my street. I love a bit of witch trials. Let's do this. So I didn't realise that she was a widow.
So that was even more heartbreaking for you then.
Yeah, it was really sad. Uh, To be honest, I knew he was. I didn't realize how the book was going to go. So I know there was like quite overt sexual themes in the story, and it was quite clear that there was obviously some kind of sexual slash romantic relationship between Abatha and Samson. But I didn't think that was going to be the case. I thought we were going to get a much more black and white story of Samson as the baddie and Abatha is the good guy. And obviously that is not what the story is about.
I think I'd have been really disappointed if that was the storyline.
Yeah.
Like, I think what we get is so much more complex, so much more deep. And don't get me wrong, like I was really sad at Edward's death, and like even though I knew it was coming, it still was really sad and really hard to take because I knew that then she's on her own. I know that then she's gonna have to do this by herself. They're going to try and take her farm. They're going to try and leave her as an outsider. And that, yeah. I the problem is I loved Edward very much, but he frustrated me because of his constant attempts at his piety, like, and his constant understanding of Wallace's shitty behaviour. But
yeah, which could have been perceived, I suppose, as weakness of character. You know, he wasn't particularly strong-willed, was he?
No, for sure. And I think Abatha tells him, like, you're not weak, you're just, you know, you get a bit tongue-tied and, you know, he's your brother and you have love for him, whereas he's got no love for you, clearly, or he thinks he does. He tries to pass it off as, you know. But I would say, though, their, like, sex scene, I know it's not really a sex scene. There is a sex scene, but so they have sex and Abatha's reading to him and he's drawing her and it was just so hot. Like,
I agree. I thought it was really good. Like the tension was there. I loved the fact that it was like very forbidden and taboo. And yeah, I thought it was hot. I loved it.
And what does she say? She brings down her nightdress and it's like, I don't feel reading anymore. And it's just like, yes, Abatha. And whew.
She takes control. She really does. She knows what she wants and she knows how to get it. And you see that right from the start, that there's more to her, that she's got hidden depths.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I wasn't sure which way we were going to go, who in the town was going to be. Like, I knew obviously Wallace was always going to be the antagonist, but I didn't know if she'd get the chance to, like, you know, side with anyone, if she'd get the chance to, you know, I don't know, have another relationship. Back to what you were saying about Samson, whatever we call them, Slewfoot, Samson, the devil, forest god, hear me out.
Father.
Daddy, hear me out.
Yeah.
Fit. So fit.
I mean, yeah. I ship it.
He's really in touch with nature, you know?
Yeah.
Has he got goat's legs and a horn? Yeah. Sorry, horns? Not he probably, but does he have a horn? we never find out. But
damn it.
But yeah, no, I know that Abatha had to have her own peril, and she had to be the hero of the story, from you know, Wallace and everyone else. But I really was sad when Edward was killed.
Yeah, but then it had. You're right. It had to be, that plot device had to be used because she had to be independent. She had to have the struggles that she had so that she could find Samson and work together. I suppose there had to be something in it for her.
Yeah, the dynamic wouldn't have worked. The story wouldn't have worked if it was a man and a woman. It had to be a woman on her own in this society. Yes. But I did love the bits of his spirit lingering as, like, Abatha, like, second thoughts about, like, entertaining Samson, or, like, you know, what she was doing in terms of magic, etc. You know, and seeing him with, like, the black eyes and thinking, oh, he's disappointed in me, you know. But all the while, I think, and it's made very clear, even at the end, that he's never disappointed. He's lingering because he wants her to be safe. And he takes the bit where he takes one last look at her before his spirit dissipates.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's so masterfully done though, like so impressive to evoke that kind of emotion in a couple of chapters and then in just like a couple of cameos. Like he's not a big character in this story at all.
Not at all. I think maybe our love for him comes from Abatha.
Yeah, and how she sees him as well. I loved when you got to really see him through her eyes. It was clear that it was a mutual love. Maybe a different kind of love, but certainly there was mutual respect and love and devotion there.
Yeah, you said it earlier, like not necessarily a lustful one, but she I think it's not lustful because she has that moment in the church where she's thinking impure thoughts about the deputy sheriff or something. Hilarious. But also, she doesn't not lust after Edward. She wants him to lust after her. And she
wants to be an object of someone's desire, doesn't she?
Yeah, she wants that attention from him. Like the part of me that was like, Edward, if you could just go, everything would be fine. If you could just, make your wife feel sexy. But it's a sin. It's a sin. But no,
the Puritan way.
I was very sad after their sex, where he was like, we shouldn't have done that. I was like, no, Edward, you're going backwards.
I really like that though, that nobody became like too sympathetic of her and changed their entire belief system to support Abatha. Even I guess the Carters, like the Reverend Carter and his wife, like their storyline really showcased that there's no middle way. Like you can't be part of the Puritan community but sympathetic to someone that practices witchcraft. It's just not going to ever work like that. You have to be all in.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I didn't really mention that in the plot summary because that's a bit too involved. I mean, we talk about Abatha going in and using her sort of newfound awakened powers to go and heal Reverend Carter's and Sarah, his wife's daughter. And all the way through, ever since she's been married to Edward, she's been like plying charms and sort of like blessings and things, saying that they come from God, which I am not one to not say they don't come from God or whatever. But the Puritans definitely don't see it like that towards the end of the novel. But we've also had a nice scene with Sarah, because Reverend Carter, he's like, I want to say like the patriarch, but in the religious sense of the town. He's like the
I think the position of Reverend in that community just holds very high standing, doesn't it? So he has a lot of sway in the town.
And he is very sympathetic to Abatha's plight of being by herself, and even Edward's. And I think he's sort of put forward as this very fair character who's like, well, as long as you're touting the word of God and not doing anything badly, then But then when Abatha's left on her own and Sarah sort of corrals it to one side, Abatha thinks she's going to get told off, and Sarah's like, there are some of us here that think you are very brave, and you do get that moment of, oh, not everyone's a massive cunt.
Well,
yeah,
for a bit.
Yeah, and she feels this sort of kinship with Sarah. And then she learns that their daughter's ill, and she goes and sort of using her sort of link to Samson and some herbs and stuff, she manages to revive Martha.
Yeah.
And Sarah's extremely impressed. She sort of sees like there's something going on a little bit, but she sees it more as a Abatha puts it forward as a blessing, and it is a blessing. All the way through, I feel like there's such this weird and it must, don't get me wrong, it was definitely how magic I'm air quoting that there was viewed at the time, but there's no, Abatha keeps saying, you know, I've never turned my back on God. If he had a problem with this, he'd be striking me down. He wouldn't be letting this happen. You know, if he is as all-seeing as you say he is, sort of thing. She never even gets that far. She never even gets this. She's just like, I've never. So he's allowing this. You know, he's.
I don't know. I think she's definitely religious. I think she just is critical of the Puritan Church and the way that they choose to worship God and how they interpret the Bible and how they interpret the
Absolutely.
teachings. I don't think there's any point where she is, you know, a Satanist or anything like that, or even a pagan. She doesn't, you know, she has the cunning women in her family, but it's never seen as anything more than a blessing. And she constantly questions what she's doing. And if Samson is evil, then why is God not smiting him? If Samson is a creation of God, then can he truly be evil? So she always thinks about that kind of quandary. You know,
I think it's so annoying to me because, but for the Puritans to be true, or to be the true antagonists, we don't get their point of view of any one of them thinking that's a possibility. I think obviously we have the Puritans are split into two sort of people: the truly pious and those that pretend to be pious to get those positions of power, to, you know, to have that power over others, men specifically having that power over women, sort of thing. And we see them during the trial, the magistrate, you know. But then you've also got the people who are, you know, truly pious, of like the people like, I don't know, say Reverend Carter, Sarah, you know. Even then,
and so
yeah, I forget everyone's names. They're all me. Yeah, Ansel. Oh, I don't know. He definitely walked a line for me. But none of them, not one of them, consider that Abatha is right and that this magic could be sent from God.
No, not at all. And obviously there's the scene during the trial, as you alluded to there, where the women that Abatha have helped turn on her and say that all these different charms and protective things that she's given them are actually burning their skin and are evil. And I think it's easy to demonize them and to instantly see them as, you know, the villains of the story. But then what you're asking them to do as women is to turn against everything that they've been brought up to do and believe, and leave the safety of their community and strike out on their own. And there's no option to strike out on your own in those times. You know, not where they live, not in the New World.
I hear you, Amy. I really do. But specifically, fuck Helen.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're definitely not sitting here saying, oh, but you do sympathise with him. I think that is definitely a testament to Brom's writing, that it's not black and white at any point. There is no true good or true evil in this story. Everybody is acting the way that they act because they believe it. You know.
This is it. Here it is, 25 episodes. I disagree.
Oh, go for it.
First off, I think there is a few characters that are true evil. Helen, no, she definitely fits into the grey area where she's afraid to step outside the box. You're exactly right. There's definitely a portion of those women that are there and are feeling that and have been corralled, and, you know, this idea of, well, if it's not, it can't, if they go after her, it'll be us next, sort of thing. But there's good wife Goody or something. She's heinous and cruel, and the magistrate. And you see, but what is really nice is the balance that Brom does with the men who are truly not really all that pious, because they do things that aren't pious, like the magistrate, like the he's like a sheriff in another town or something. He's like a something.
Yeah.
Those that come from the other town, and like Wallace and Ansel's a grey area, as we said, but like those guys, I think Wallace is a little deluded, I think, but the others are very well aware of what they're doing, specifically with the bit where they say they need a confession from Sarah to make what they're doing righteous. But yeah, but then what I like about, sorry, I was saying about Brom is that he makes some of the women similar to that. So I don't remember,
Yes.
but yeah, Goody, she's just awful, always awful, and I can't believe anyone like that could have any faith.
I don't.
Don't get me wrong. In the world
I
today,
don't disagree, but I think that in a community like that that's so punitive of people that do not fully conform, where women are treated like property, where they have absolutely no say or right or independence, then you can see why they don't want to put their head above the parapet. I'm not saying it's right to, but I
no,
think you could understand why they did turn on her at the end, because
yeah, for
what's
sure.
the alternative?
No, absolutely. And like I said, I completely agree. And you are very right in what you're saying. First off, I think I'm too behind Abatha, so I can't not view these women as
I
evil.
love that. Don't get me wrong, I loved her, but I do think she's an anti-hero, 100%.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, she's not what we would class as a moral hero. Like, but then I don't tend to enjoy moral heroes because I feel like she kills people and that's not I'm not saying I'm not condoning murder, but I am condoning it in a setting where it's you're going to be killed if you don't. Like,
I think she becomes the monster that they always think she has been, right? Like, to survive, she realizes, well, you think I'm evil, you think I'm a witch and I'm working with the devil, so I'm going to do everything that you think I'm going to do.
that was definitely so like the novel really ramped up in terms of speed from the moment that Abatha is accused of witchcraft. And she's in the trial, and Sarah, who is again the Reverend Carter's wife, she is sort of accused of knowing that she was a witch because she helped Martha, and then Martha even turns on her own fucking mother. Anyway, but look, let's not get into that. But so then Sarah and Abatha are sort of kept in like a awful like box,
Cage. Yeah, I think they're in 2 cages or something.
which are too small. Abatha's leg is very badly broken, and they're just
Mhm.
manipulating it into spaces. Um, and then Sarah is, I mean, completely tortured.
Mhm.
Um,
She has a door put over her, isn't it? Like a door laid on her, and then like rocks put on the door to,
yeah,
like, I suppose, to kind of weigh her down. Yeah, horrible.
and what I loved about that is I mean I imagine you as well, because we wouldn't be friends if we didn't were so fascinated by the Salem witch trials, and so fascinated by all of that history, part of history. And that is I'd say a lesser known tool used to torture women to force them into confession. The drowning, very very known. But it was really nice to see and be like, oh, I know that they did this. Like, that's sort of like, whoa, I'm not stupid. I know about history.
Was
um,
that the cutting bit?
no, the cutting
No.
bit, yes, but no, the door with the rocks. And I'd read
Yeah.
that before, but yeah,
Mhm.
basically crushing her to death until, and I'm like, go on, Sarah, yes, yes, fuck them, fuckers. And then Martha comes along again and is like, mother, just tell them. And it's,
Just confess.
oh, and
Yeah.
she does confess, and she gives them exactly what they want. Oh, Amy, the emotions I felt through this, and I was broken for Sarah, broken for her
It was so
until
sad. It was so very sad. And it was almost like two sides of the same coin, wasn't it? Two fates. It was like they're both being oppressed by this horrible patriarchal society. And Abatha absolutely just becomes exactly what they think she's going to become and kicks ass. The next scenes are the best. Whereas Sarah is just the complete opposite of that and just lets it grind her down and is so defeatist, and it's so sad. I actually did shed a tear at that point.
I was I felt myself getting so emotional, and I felt my heart breaking for her when she confessed. You could almost, I'm pretty sure Brom describes the glee on the men's faces, and they're like, oh, right,
Yep.
done, yep, tick box, etc. The bit for me that made me get upset is when Abatha's going full on dark witch mode, is just fucking around, is just beep, 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 die, die, die. And then
So good.
comes across Sarah and she's trying to help her. And Sarah says, so you were a witch all along. And
Yeah.
and Sarah turns on her, do not touch me, you disgust me, this is disgraceful. Oh, and I don't get me wrong, I understand why it was done. I mean, Sarah is also pretty much tortured into insanity at this point.
Yeah.
It got me right there that,
I know.
Abatha's been, it says to the Reverend Carter, she even says exactly what you said before, she becomes what she wants them to be. Abatha's dead, they killed Abatha, I'm the witch, and I like that very much, but I also, it annoyed me because, like you said, it gave them excuses to think that, it gave them the credence to be how they were, to act how they were, whereas I would have liked them to see that they made her this and she wouldn't have done anything had they, but that's a perfect world and we don't live in a perfect world, and so I would.
There was so much of that in this story, that you do not live in a perfect world. There was no fairy tale ending here. It was brutal.
Yeah, and it was what I think is really interesting is you mentioned fairy tale there, is it definitely, it's almost pitched like it should be a fairy tale, like it's a story of hope, and she makes it, and she's gonna, oh, the crops have been burnt down by Wallace and no one believes her, but what about the honey? The honey, it's great, yes. Oh, the honey, of course, Edward's honey, they're bees, amazing. And then she gets to say, but then no, it doesn't matter because he comes and he's founder of witchcraft.
Yes.
The cat!
Oh, I know, I hated the bit with the cat. I hated that.
Trigger warning, guys, there is animal death, and it's fucking awful.
It's awful. I'm not even going to talk about it on here, but it's awful, and it's a huge trigger warning, so please do research it before you read it. But yeah, it's horrific. Yeah. I mean, that part is so horrendous. And then in contrast, we get the next bit when she just goes ham on the town, and it was so satisfying to read.
Yeah, such a vivid and violent, rightly violent depiction of female rage. Like, felt like we were, every single roadblock in the story was just ramping up to these moments, to this explosion of her sort of accepting Samson's offer, accepting the offer of the forest, becoming this sort of force, and just taking back, and it no longer becomes a protection of the forest. It's pure vengeance, and it's just mwah.
It's great. If we have any Swifties listening, Taylor Swift fans, if you have listened to the song "Who's Afraid of Little Old Me," it is, that scene is that song, because you just need to listen to it. But yes, it's
unofficial Slewfoot playlist.
It's like the anthem. It's Abatha's anthem, and I loved it. And it just, as I was reading, I just kept thinking about how perfect the song is and how perfect the situation is, and it was just so satisfying, so bloody, so violent, but it had to be, because it had to be viscerally. You just needed to get that. You felt angry with her. It was almost like you could have cried just through sheer frustration for her so much of the way through the story. Like when her crops were burnt, when she was accused of witchcraft, everything was out to get her all the time. And there were so many scenes where Brom wrote it perfectly, just how much her struggle affected her. Like even the scene where she's trying to harness the mule at the start, and it's just so well written. You could just picture how heavy that bridle thing that she's trying to put on the mule was, and how defeating it must have felt. And then she goes into the barn and puts her rope up, and as readers we think, she's weak, she can't do this, she's given up, this is what he's trying to get us to think here. She's going to just end it, she's not going to fight for this. And then she just uses it to MacGyver a way of putting the bridle on the mule. It's just great. It's so satisfying. There's so many moments like that where you just see how much of a badass character Abatha is.
Absolutely. And I think I'd like to talk a little bit about how we felt as women she was depicted, because for a depiction of a woman's struggle, it's very surprising that it's written by a man.
Yeah, it's really well done. I did have a look at the end of the book, just because I wanted to see the acknowledgements and things, and I thought it was interesting that his editors are both women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think...
and he does talk about how difficult the book was to write without their guidance and support.
Thanks, Gerald. Or Gerard. Gerald, it's Gerald. It's Gerald. Thanks, Gerald. Yeah, and I this moves us nicely into my ick of the week.
Oh.
Yeah. Ick of the week. There you go. Amy at one point wants us to have some sort of musical interlude where we can almost press a button and it goes wah wah wah, ick of the week.
I want a theme tune. I want theme tunes for our segments for sure.
Watch this space. But anyway, yeah, the ick of the week. We did it a couple of weeks ago. We both quite enjoyed it, and we thought we would do our best to continue it. So for me, the specific scene is the scene when Wallace, his son Isaac, and Ansel are watching Abatha for something wrong, waiting for her to fuck up in some way or another, or do something that's witchy or whatever. And of course she provides them with this by talking to her pet, who Ansel describes as a familiar, and making a flower crown. And they're all, well, it does have bones in it, but to be, so, whatever. But
that aside,
before that, there is a scene described very, it's quite quick, but it's not grotesque, but it is grotesque. And it's basically Abatha is she's plowing she's digging something, she's doing something in the land, and she's not wearing a bunch of fucking clothes. She's wearing some clothes, and unfortunately Wallace can see right down her shirt to her sort of cleavage, and he feels himself get hard, and he turns away, and he sees that both his son and Ansel are the same. That is that's it. Awful. So that
gross.
It was necessary.
Do you think it was necessary?
I think so. I think necessary in a sense of not necessarily having to have her, because I think it was done in a really interesting way. It was they could see the mounds of the tops of her breasts, and there was no more description, no more overt lushness of Abatha. No description of it. It's all about, comes back to the men and the hardening of their penises and stuff. But
yeah,
and their flushing and the way that they felt,
yes, much more on them and objectifying and thinking about them rather than her. Yeah, no,
absolutely,
I agree. It was gross to read, but it was written well. I think
for sure gross to read, because and I feel like we both say this. We know what men are like, in the sense of the fact that you and I are early 30s and have spent, just over 3 decades watching men objectify women throughout media, throughout culture, throughout our lives. So it wasn't surprising, but it was also still just as disgusting.
And I did think there was going to be a scene in there where, and I'm glad there wasn't, but I thought there might have been a scene in there where Abatha was sexually assaulted.
I thought that was going to happen when Wallace attacks her.
Yeah, me too.
Because
I thought he was going to be overcome, and that's that scene that you're talking about, your ex scene, was almost like a nod to something more going to happen, like it's going to escalate more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I was wondering whether if there was going to be a sort of sexual assault or a rape scene, whether or not we were going to have a sort how that justification was going to be used. Generally,
yeah,
it's like men seem to think that it's a controlled thing. That's how they seem
to cow her or to treat her like property or to remind her of her place or
exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that is, and that's normally where we get villains trying to justify their actions for that element. But you know, I'm glad there wasn't. But what I think made this perhaps potentially more, like, yes, we're not surprised, it happens all the time, but it came out of nowhere, is because every time Abatha's with Samson or every time Abatha's body was described or whatever, he never describes it when she's naked. Like she there's a moment where she sort of has this moment of freeingness in the forest and they're flying above the forest and she's completely naked and all you get is she's disrobed or that she's naked or something. That those are the words that are used. There's nothing about like her perky breasts were pointing to the moon or anything like that.
No.
He does such a beautiful job of letting us know that she is free in a sense, but that's it.
Exactly. It's more about the actual physical act of removing her clothes to be emotionally free, because in that beautiful scene, it's when Samson is trying to help her almost like live out a childhood fantasy that she's had of being a fairy queen that can fly. So it's so innocent and so lovely. And you're right, it's not gratuitous or kind of smarmy or gross. It's written really beautifully.
And so with that lack of objectification, and that runs all the way through, I think the only sort of mention of Abatha in terms of how she looks in like a sort of sexually objectifying way is Edward, when he looks and he doesn't objectify her, he just remarks on how beautiful he thinks she is and, you know, how much he, you know, wants her, but it's never in a gratuitous or like a way where he, you know, doesn't consider that she's a person behind that.
No. And when she does get naked and she does embrace her sexuality, she does it. It's her decision to get undressed, to seduce Edward. You know, she's never the person that these things are done to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Good on you, Brom.
So we need to talk about our male main character, other main character. And my boy Samson.
Yeah, Samson, Slewfoot, Devil, Satan, Lucifer himself.
Or really benevolent nature god. We don't know.
Yeah, or, you know, or as you said earlier in the episode, Daddy.
Daddy. Yeah, I loved how much depth there was to his character. I honestly just thought it was going to be so originally I thought, okay, maybe he's going to be like a very obvious like antagonist of the story, a villain. Fine. Then I thought, oh no, I think there's more to this. Maybe he's going to manipulate Abatha and he's going to use her to meet his own evil ends. But he wasn't. He was just he had some green flags.
He also was just, it was almost a completely separate plot point, his identity crisis.
I know, he was going through it.
Yeah, so we essentially meet him as a consciousness almost, as a sort of he's quite confused, he doesn't really remember, and we've got three of what can only be described as the most terrifying but also cute as hell forest critters.
Oh, I know.
So
What do we have?
Forest was a bit
Forest.
fun.
Yep.
Creek was the fish that just floated.
Which was the weirdest one for me.
And was it Sky? Or was it it was something else, like it's because it's creek for river, forest for
I think it was Sky the Raven.
Yeah.
Sky was the Raven one. Yeah.
And
the wild folk.
Yeah. And they somehow were these animals but also had the faces of children.
Yeah.
I just passed by that bit and just chose to see them as sort of like Snow White-esque creatures that were just very helpful.
I thought them a bit like Pain and Panic from Hercules.
That is perfect. Absolutely.
Because they were always like plotting to kill Abatha, and then it was just it didn't work for them ever. So they were always just failing in their little quest.
But then I think, they're quite integral because they're bringing Samson, who, obviously he's not called Samson until Abatha names him so, and they're bringing him unsuspecting victims to feed upon, because their goal is to keep Paw, the big sort of tree alive, or like wake in it and keep the forest, safe. What I really loved is the parallels that Brom drew between the Puritans and the forest creatures, both senses of like both definitely completely like black in their like black and white thinking, like no, they're evil, they must be gone, they're evil, they must be gone, sort of thing. You've got Abatha and Samson who are very much in the grey of like, surely we can just all live together and it's all fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I loved that as well. It was especially the fact that they also lied. So they were also lying to Samson, to father, whatever they were calling him at the time, just to basically get him to murder all the people in Sutton. So I think there's one point where he says, I'm having these really odd dreams and I don't quite understand them. I can't quite interpret them. They're spiders. It's really frightening. And they're like, don't worry about that. Just disregard that. But we need to kill her. Let's go kill her now and we'll come back to the dreams.
She's the one that's making the spiders happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what I loved about it is with the three of them, you've got Creek and Sky. Creek and Sky, they're very much like, oh, she's got milk. Oh, maybe we should go and have some milk. And Forrest, they're like, don't fucking drink the milk. Like,
come back here. No.
It was
I know.
Just these moments of cute levity that I'm not entirely sure you at all, but just these moments of just it was great. But then of course such a sad thing where you realise that his entire identity was that he was this beautiful, benevolent sort of stag god, right?
He was like a nature god, yeah.
And then another sort, or like a shaman or something, desired power, and so killed a lot of the forest critters, hung their skulls on his wall, and that sort of imbued him with immortality. And to capture Samson, do the same, until Forest and Creek and Sky were able to revive him, but they kept his memories from him because they wanted to use him for vengeance, whereas his initial form was like a peaceful, quite like tranquil god.
Yeah, he's there to keep the forest safe, isn't he? He's there to kind of protect the forest, protect the creatures of the forest. And there's offerings and things, so he is seen as a god very much so, but you're right, he's not a vengeful god until they do try and bring him back, and then they imbue their hatred into
That's it.
the incantation that they perform or whatever it is to bring him back, and basically he goes on a murderous rampage and kills all the indigenous people.
Yep.
Whoops.
Whoopsie poopsie.
And he feels real regret and real guilt for a lot of his actions, because there's a point where he's told this and he's like, oh yeah, you should just kill me then. Like, I shouldn't be able to continue. If I've done these terrible things, I'm sorry. And even when he talks about Edward, and Abatha asks him about, did you kill Edward? And he says, I don't know. I genuinely don't know if I did, but I didn't mean to. There was no malice or evil intent there.
And then the possum Forrest comes on and he's like, I killed Edward.
No, go away, Forrest.
So you were cute, mate, and now you're not.
He was cute though, even though he was like a little cute evil possum. Like, I did like him, but he was like just quite frustrating. And he did go through it. I loved the part where Samson runs away with the spirits because he wants to find out more. And you can just imagine that Forrest is just standing there like, come on, man. We've put a lot of time into bringing you back here. Where are you going now? He has to like chase after him. Like, oh, he's long suffering.
Yeah, no, and he was really cute for sure. And I felt like he also, like, we talked about how well-rounded all of these characters were. Brom spared no like expense. I'm gonna say it doesn't really work, but like it spends no expense in ensuring that even the characters of Forrest, he has his own little arc where he's trying to kill Abatha because he thinks she's the problem. Then he goes after what's he called, Samson, to take him from this shaman to help, and he sacrifices himself to ensure that he gets back. And he says Abatha's in trouble, like, you know, whilst he never fully accepts her, and you know, he realizes that she is important and potentially could help. And it's I was, and then Samson takes his little body and puts him on a rock high up in the forest. Oh, it was just really lovely, and
it was really lovely. And I loved the ending when they're all with her.
Yeah,
and they've got their own little, I guess, dysfunctional family situation going on in the forest where they just kill hunters and people that don't look after the environment.
Yeah, and really is that analogy for how society should be.
I really loved the epilogue. I thought it was I loved it, and actually the last line just gave me chills, but in a good way, like in a really, like, this has been an epic story kind of way, when she says, oh, Samson's going to come along soon, and they're like, oh, who's Samson? And she says, oh, he's the devil.
The devil.
Like,
yeah. Boom.
So cool. Yeah.
So I really loved that what we got from Samson ultimately was this, I don't want to be a monster, I don't want to be vengeance, I don't want to do this, and then this reckoning inside of him throughout the novel where he realizes he can do both. He can keep Forrest safe, but also he does need to have that element of violence within him to do so, because I suppose maybe time is moving on and more people are coming, and they won't abide by the laws of nature.
No.
So he has to enforce those laws, which I thought was just a really beautiful way of almost paving over the violence in a way. Like, it's all okay.
I know.
He's murdering helpless people, but they fuck with the forest, and they fuck with Abatha, so bring it on.
Oh, I know. It was really cute how in the end you were just like, oh, Samson's coming back. But he's going to absolutely slaughter these poor hunters that have done nothing but just, try and get some. I don't know what they're doing, if they're doing it for food, if they're doing it for sport, if they're doing it for whatever, but they're not out there trying to be, in their minds, evil. But it's like, no, Samson's coming back, the devil's coming back, and you will be killed.
I do think there was a moment, especially with the last bit, where Brom almost had to make those men irredeemable by considering that they thought they were going to fuck Abatha.
I think so too. I think that was a little bit cheap. A little bit cheap at the end.
Yeah, but again, that goes back to what I was saying about men. It's men in it. Like, come on.
That's it. That's all he had to say. Just like, they're men, and we could all be like, yeah, they're going to get killed by Samson. Hooray!
Yeah, you don't have to convince me, mate. I was on board.
Yeah.
No, but I really loved their relationship. So we could talk a little bit about Abatha and Samson's relationship. Never once, like, it was. You said earlier in the episode, like, that you thought it was quite sexual, but they never once, like, do the deed, But
no.
So I want to know what you think. What made you think it was sexual?
I just thought a lot of it was quite hot. I liked when it was like she undressed for him and then they flew on the broom, and then there was a part where she was like cheering him up by singing those like really like kind of body songs, and I think it was like he allowed her to be liberated, to live how she wanted to live and embrace her sexuality. And Edward did to an extent, but he was quite ashamed of her. And it was almost like, don't do it in public. Don't hold my hand in public. We can't act like this in front of people.
I think Edward was also ashamed of himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereas I don't think that was the issue for Samson. He was like, go for it.
Yeah,
you do you.
But I wonder whether we could spend hours talking about this, I'm sure, but like we could come into a nature versus nurture. So like Samson is almost a newborn child in that sense of like he has no preconceptions,
no, none,
especially when he has no memories. And this is when we sort of get he has the ability to liberate Abatha because there's nothing that he sees her doing that makes him think that she's wrong.
But then there is that nod to that, isn't there? There's that nod to being free and to allowing yourself to kind of embrace your childhood desires as well, when Abatha wants to be the fairy queen. Like, it's quite innocent and lovely and pure. So it's not all about being free sexually. It's also about just being free to be yourself and be and have big dreams and think big things and not be suppressed by this horrible society that you found yourself in.
And find a friend online and start a podcast.
Exactly. Samson would love this.
He fucking would, wouldn't he? Tagline. That is our tagline. Sponsored by Slewfoot. Samson would love it.
I love it.
Well, you're right, though. There is something inherently sexy and hot about this relationship. Like, we have no idea. There is no, there's never any illusion or Brom never suggests that they have sex or whatever, or that they're in any kind of typical relationship. He is very much, he's asked if he loves her and he says he doesn't know. Then I gets to a point where he realizes that Samson does love her and cares for her, but there's never any need for it to be reciprocated. She chooses him and chooses the forest and chooses vengeance. But I just love that it's this relationship or like this partnership of just so, you're right, it's just something so inherently hot about somebody allowing you to truly be yourself.
And I don't think there ever has to be a label on their relationship. At the end, it's very ambiguous. Like, what are they? Are they just people? Not people at this point, but are they just, gods in the forest coexisting. Are they in a relationship? Would you call it a relationship for them? I don't think we need to know. I think we can just be happy that they're together.
That's it. Oh, it took the words out of my mouth. We just can be happy that they are together. And,
Yay.
Perfect. Split. Transition time. Final thoughts.
Okay. An interesting final thoughts, I think. Right. Okay. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts on Slewfoot by I loved it. I thought it was somehow, like you were saying, it's more of a horror. It's horror more. It's like it was like you said, a fantasy. It was also quite wholesome in points. It was funny. It was rageful. It was it almost it transcended a few genres, I think, which I thought made it much more stronger as a book. I loved it. Yeah.
I agree. It was great. It was a great book. I love horrors where there's real horror in there, social horror, whatever it is, horrifying situations the character goes through, as well as something supernatural or paranormal going on. And I think this did this so well. It was beautiful, as you said earlier. It was a bit like a fairy tale. And it was gorgeous to read, and I loved the art that was within it. I loved the end, just because the way I don't know if the hard copy's the same, I imagine not, but the ebook has just got a couple of pages at the end where each character has like a portrait. And I just loved just poring over that because the art style is so cool.
I never went that far.
Oh yeah, it's just at the very, very end.
All right, we can continue chat while I find them.
It's great. There's like a good couple of pages. Yeah, so Abatha looking very pure, forest looking creepy as we would expect, almost like he's wearing like a child wearing a possum suit. Oh, Creek is horrendous.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah, but no, you should look. It was at the very end of the ebook. The very, very end.
Yeah. Would you recommend? I felt like we haven't done this for so long. Would you recommend this to a friend?
That's where I think it's tricky. Ooh. Not because it's not well written and not because it's not an excellent story. I just don't know if I can think of anybody that would enjoy it. I don't know. I think if you're looking for something, I'd go in without any preconceptions about what you're going to be reading. That's what I did. Don't read. I wouldn't read the synopsis. I certainly wouldn't listen to this podcast. Just go in blind and read it and experience it. Don't have any ideas about what it is. You know, it's going to be this or it's going to be that, because you might be disappointed. Just read the book and see how you go. So I think it's difficult to recommend, because I've just got to say, trust me, you'll have a great time.
Yeah. I loved that. Like, at first when you said, "Oh, I don't know," I was like, "Oh, Amy, come on, man! I'd absolutely recommend this." But I loved the last bit you said of just trust me, you'll be fine. Yeah,
I couldn't say to someone, "I'm going to tell you a great horror book to read," and then recommend Slewfoot, or I'm going to recommend a good fantasy to read and then recommend. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think you would be disappointed. You've just got to go in unprepared, no preconceived ideas, and just enjoy the story, because it's its own thing.
This, unfortunately, as we are running out of time, this is probably an interesting question, and feel free to tell me to fuck off. Do we think this book, whilst we're suggesting that it obviously stretched across a few genres, did you think it transcended tropes?
Yes, absolutely.
Like, yeah. I know, obviously, I would never class good versus evil as a trope, because that's just nearly knocked my laptop off. That's just but like, yes, I don't think there was anything that I was reading and I was like, oh, I know what's going to happen here because this is.
Me too.
Yeah.
Totally. I thought I did. Like when we introduced to Reverend Carter, I was like, "Oh, he's going to be evil." I've read books set in the Puritan times. I've watched TV shows. I've seen films. The archetype here is that he is going to be evil, and then he's actually very sympathetic to Abatha and her plight. So it absolutely turns so many things on its head.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's probably maybe another reason why you have to say, just trust me and read this book, because,
Just trust me.
like you said, it doesn't follow any typical
No.
sort of genre tropes or horror tropes or, wholesome trope, whatever. That there's a bit of everything, and it comes together to make this sort of like half goat, half woman book.
And that's what we want. That's exactly what we want.
Exactly.
What I would say is that it has definitely convinced me to read more Brom. I'm very excited to read more.
Yeah, and I think those I haven't read them, but those would be my recommendations. Like if you loved Slewfoot, he has written The Child Thief, Lost Gods, the Krampus one you said before, The Plucker.
Oh,
I think that's yeah, no. There's a few, and yeah. I trying to think if I can think of anything else that I would recommend, but there's nothing. I don't think we've read anything like this. If you really enjoyed, if you really enjoyed the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, you are gonna love Slewfoot.
I was comparing my notes today of how many notes I took in preparation to talk about the Cinnamon Bun Book Club bookstore, I think it is. And I think I wrote 1 page, and it was just the characters on a list, so I didn't forget who was who. I took 7 pages worth of notes for this one. So that might shine through in our discussion, I hope.
There's a difference in quality, guys. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Right.
I was going to say not one is better than the other, but I'm not going to say that one and have that in record. It's not true, in my opinion.
There you
go.
Everyone.
Everyone knows we're leaving no room for interpretation there of how we felt about Cinnamon Bun Bookstore versus Slewfoot.
Anyway,
okay,
we have a couple of announcements. They're very fun, so nobody panic. Next week, our final film, we will be watching Hereditary. And I think this is it. I think I say it every week, but I think this is it. I think this is the one where I will shit my pants. I have not, okay. I don't know a lot about it. All I know is it's got a hell of a following. It's done very well as a modern film. And I'm quite terrified. I mean, don't get me wrong, I fucking love Toni Collette, so maybe I'll grab onto her as a life raft. But yeah,
I think you will see. I think you will see a difference in quality.
Yeah, of course.
And depth.
Okay, well, let's leave it at that. And
that's all I'm going to say. And if you are scared by this one, then I understand why the other ones haven't hit, and I can give you some recommendations if this one is the one that gets you.
I don't want the recommendations to be scary. I mean, I'm riding a high right now, and I do not want to be put down. But we will discuss that next week.
We also might maybe have to edit this out, but we also may have a special guest next week. Maybe
keep them wanting more. Yeah, cool. Right, and we thought it would be nice to tell you what this whole Spook-ish series has been leading up to. So the week of Halloween, October the 28th, it is our final book in the Spook-ish series. We already said you won't be surprised. I don't think you will be. Amy, tell the people, what are we reading on the October the 28th? What episode does October the 28th cover?
October the 28th covers Twilight. You knew we were going to eventually have to do it. I'm excited. I don't know what reread this will be for me. I will try and work it out
I don't
before we talk about it.
I don't know. I don't think I'm capable of working out what number reread this is for me. Yeah, no. Yes, we will be reading Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. We will. Is it safe to say not be reading the rest of them? We're just going to read Twilight.
I'm not reading the rest of them.
One. We put a stall out. Just not reading the rest of them. There's no chance. November will not see light again as we return to regular broadcasting.
We've got too many books to read. We've got too many that I want to cover. So
very true. So we will be reading the first book in the Twilight series, and I couldn't be more excited. Alex and I watched the films like maybe a month and a half ago. So I'm ready with my knowledge of like, film, book, different things. You know, we'll see. I'm so excited. And yeah, that is the episode, guys.
That's us.
We are so
let's hope this ending stays this time. Please, please.
Yes. Hopefully you're listening to this right now going, woo, yeah, ending made it this time.
Oh, goodness me. I think the only thing I can think of that might have happened last time is there was an interruption in the episode where my mum called, and I think that what happened is I didn't let it convert long enough. I have no idea what happened, but essentially it's like a little bit of us talking, a big gap where I'm on the phone, and then a tiny little bit of me saying, right, okay, that's me done, and then that's it. It just doesn't have anything else. So I have no idea. Many apologies, but this time I've got confidence that we're going to end it the right way.
This time neither of our mums has had any sort of microwave Pyrex.
She did call me. She did actually call me in the middle of it, and I was like, not today, Susan. Not happening again.
Susan has radar as to when we're podcasting. I must call.
She knows. She knows.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We are. Oh, I can't believe Spook-ish season's nearly over.
No, I'm so sad. We had so many more books to read. Like, I'm excited to read Twilight, but you had a fantastic list. I've already been compiling a list of my own books that I'm really, really keen to try and read before the end of Spook-ish season. But it's all good because we're getting into the most wonderful time of the year soon. So it's going to be festive. It's going to be fun. It's just going to keep getting better.
It's going to blow your fucking minds. That's what it is. But yeah, if you want to continue your minds to be blown, Page Turners Pod on Instagram and TikTok. Podcast pageturners@gmail.com. Email us. Claim your free book. Jesus.
Not this one.
Oh, not Slewfoot, too expensive. You can't. Slewfoot. If Amy and I,
if we can't have it, you can have it. That's it.
100%. Not this one, but any of the other ones that we have read for the last 25 episodes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and we did hit 500 listens last week. I just forgot to check, but when I came out, we had hit. But yeah, no, we've surpassed that now. Thank you so much, guys. Come to the Patreon. There is more content. That's not a lie. Anyway, Amy, send us home.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to the 36 of you that are following us currently on Spotify. Please follow us if you... 37 now! Woo, 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 woo! And if you are following us and you haven't already rated us 5 stars, nothing else, then please do.
Please do. Yes, absolutely. We have 17 reviews and there's 37 of you, so 20 of you are missing out somewhere.
Come on. But in the meantime, stay spooky.